everybody, my name is Garth Harwood, Director of Education Programs here at Hidden Villa, and today I'd like to explore with you the idea of life cycles. Just about every living thing goes through the same basic life cycle of birth, growth, reproduction, and death. Although we all do it in slightly different ways. For example, let's think about how many different forms you have taken in your lifetime. Now, you might be thinking about, well, I was a baby once, and then I was a kid, and someday I'll be grown up, and someday I'll be an old person. And that's a kind of a life cycle. But basically, you've only just had one real form to your body in this lifetime, although you might have looked a little goofier when you were little. Well, I want to explore with you how it works if you are an insect. Let's think about a ladybug for a minute. I have a diagram here I'd like to show you, and we'll walk through the life cycle of an insect right now, okay? On this cardboard, I have the 4 major stages that an insect will go through and take 4 different forms in one lifetime. The very first thing that will happen is a parent ladybug will lay some eggs on a leaf. The eggs are cylindrical and very tiny. There may be a whole bunch of them laid together, and then the parent walks away and they're on their own. A little while later, a larva is going to hatch out of those eggs. Were you ever a larva? Didn't think so. A larva is a voracious eater, grows really quickly, and after a certain amount of time, it's going to get an urge to change yet again. But before it gets to be an adult, it's going to have to take an intermediate form called a pupa. A pupa is usually a hard-shelled thing. You may be aware of things like cocoons and chrysalises. Well, the ladybug's pupa takes a slightly different form, but it has in common that hard outer covering where the metamorphosis, or complete change of body form, will be taking place. After it's complete, the moment you've been waiting for finally arrives, and the adult ladybug emerges from the pupal case. So there's the 4 stages of a typical insect life cycle. And now that you're familiar with it, and with the language that goes with it, we can actually go outside in nature and see that whole pattern for ourselves written in a single oak tree's leaf. So here we are on one of Hidden Villa's forest trails, and I'm looking for a particular pattern that I'd like to show you that frequently occurs in nature. It doesn't occur in these bay trees or in these ferns. I'm looking for an oak tree. Not just any kind of oak tree either, a coast live oak tree. Here we have a gooseberry, more bay trees, some California blackberry. Now I see what I'm looking for. This is a very young coast live oak tree. Now we can see what I was talking about. Can you see the little pale lines written in this dark green leaf? Those, my friends, are leaf miners. Insects that specialize in mining out the soft interior of the leaf, sandwiched between the harder top and bottom layers. These insects live their entire lives up to adulthood inside a leaf, and only then do they fly free as adults. Let's look at this a little bit closer inside where we can see some more detail. So now let's look much closer up at how that life cycle is written in the individual leaf. With this pointer here, I'm going to bring my point to the very end of one of these squiggly lines on the leaf that we saw when we were outdoors. This very, very tiny point here shows you how big the larva was when it first hatched from its egg. And that also tells me how big the egg itself was. Too small to see, in other words. But once it started eating its way through the leaf, as if the inside of the leaf were sort of like the cream inside a sandwich cookie, they grow and grow and grow and eat their way through the leaf. And eventually you can see the size doubling, tripling, and getting even bigger as it makes its way all the way through to the end, the wide end of the tunnel. And here you may be able to see a difference in color where it's hollowed out and empty. The darker areas, by the way, are the insect's poop. Yes, insects poop too, and there's nowhere for that poop to go except back in the tunnel that it already hollowed out. So that's one good reason why it always moves forward. There's something else that happened that's very important right here at the end of the tunnel. The insect metamorphosed. And you now know what happens when an insect metamorphoses. It changed its body form completely and was ready to fly away as an adult insect. So how did it get out of here? It chewed its way out to the outer surface and flew away to lay eggs on another leaf. And that is how a life cycle works in a leaf. This is Garth from Hidden Villa saying, thanks for listening, folks.